Hi, everybody, and welcome to another Friday. Gorgeous day here. I'm sitting at the Emerald Village, which is, as some of you know, a 9-acre eco village that I co-founded 10 years ago, almost. In fact, over 10 years ago. And we co-created this with 10 partners. So we've been doing this in partnership, in real collaboration. We've got this beautiful 9-acre property in San Diego, right at the north end of San Diego County. And we were really lucky. We bought the property in 2011, right at the bottom of sort of the financial crisis. And we just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And the uniqueness of this property was so special because it had already 5 structures on it, and it had outbuildings, and it had lots of little unique um, outhouses, and it has a barn, and it has a big tea house. And for anybody who's been here, you step onto this land and you just feel a sense of magic and majesty. And just what a blessing to be able to be a steward of land, and to be able to nurture it. And I was a city boy. I never grew up with a whole lot of land. I grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa, in the heart of it. I moved to San Diego when I was 13, but I always lived in a very nuclear family. I never really envisioned living in community. It wasn't something that I understood. I never had any models. I grew up, just very traditionally, very, very similar to everybody else. And I think the first taste that I had of real community was when I went to Burning Man for the first time. And and for those who are out there right now, giving you a shout out to all those renegades out there on the playa. But Burning Man was a sense that you went out into the desert, into the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, and you really you really needed each other. You created a camp, and everybody brought something different, and people cooked at different times. And with this gathering of people and community, you created a life, and you created a week, and you rested with one another, and you played with one another, and you supported one another, and you nurtured one another. And then at the end of that week, you would break everything down, pack everything up, and head on home. And so much of the impetus of the Emerald Village came out of that. We were, in fact, the 10 of us were all burners. We all came from that culture. And we said, well, what if we could do something a little bit different? What if we could take all those communal aspects that we loved so much, this idea of raising our children together and sharing resources and growing and building and making things beautiful? What if we did that on an ongoing basis, but instead of tearing it down, we continue to build it, we continue to make it more magical and more wonderful? And 10 years later, you see what the fruits of that labor can be. You see the, the, the magic and the majesty that can come out of that. And the really fascinating part was that it's been such a influencing experience that it's now crafted my viewpoint of the world. I no longer see things just in simple in simple terms. I see things in much bigger in a much bigger system. The land has actually taught me something really, really valuable, and that is that it is an ecosystem. There is an order and a magic and a majesty, and things somehow harmoniously live with one another. And for those of you who've had an opportunity to grow a garden, you know what I mean. You you plant something and you nurture it. You got to make sure it's got the right soil. You got to make sure you plant it in the right time. You got to make sure it's got the right light and the right irrigation. It doesn't get too much water. And this is not unlike your finances. In many ways, I'm a financial gardener. I I help people to create their garden, their financial garden. And how do you do that? And how do you make an ecosystem that's healthy and strong and alive? Part of that is in diversification. So just like you don't want just one tree in your garden or in your orchard, you don't just want one asset in your portfolio, because that tree may not do well in drought, or it may not do well in cold, or it may not do well in really hot weather, right? But you have other trees that do well in those environments. And so in a healthy, thriving orchard, we want multiple fruit trees. We also want flowers. We also want beneficial flowers. We also want good soil. We also want worms. We want bees. And so there's all these myriad of things that make a garden a garden. And so too in our financial planning, we want to make sure we got insurance, and we got to make sure we got our wills and our trusts. We want to make sure it's protected from rodents and from eroding taxes and from the beauty and the nutrients of our financial wealth to dissipate. And I love this idea. I love this idea of really seeing your finances as though you're seeing a garden, and knowing that it takes time. Just like you wouldn't expect to take a single seed and drop it in the ground and expect to have fruit in the next day, you recognize it takes time. So too with your financial garden. You drop something in the ground and it takes years sometimes. Sometimes those first fruits don't come for a while. You've got to be patient. You've got to keep watering. You've got to make sure that the conditions are right. You've got to make sure you're pruning when it's appropriate. So I want to really give thanks and really honor this earth and honor this place and honor my role in it. And to thank you. Thanks for watching. A lot of us never really learned how to plant our financial garden. No one really taught us how to lay it out in a way that makes sense, in an ecosystem that works, in conditions that allow for time and nature to really make it blossom and produce beautiful flowers and produce beautiful fruit and create streams of passive income. So if you are looking for that system, if you're confused about how to lay it all out, you know, give me a call, shoot me an email, private message me, follow my blog, do whatever you want to do, because it's important. It's really important. Not only for yourself to have a thriving garden, of course, that's where it starts. We need to make sure that the garden is supporting our family and feeding our family and feeding ourselves and allowing for more and more growth. Because if we know the old adage that if you're not growing, you're dying. And so we want to continuously pull the weeds and plant more beneficials and make sure we're thriving. But as your garden grows and as you get bigger and more abundant, then there's enough to share, and that's when the real joy of life comes in. When you have more than you can handle, and when you get to a place of like, wow, there's only so much I need, and therefore I'm able to share it and give it and contribute. As we enter the Jewish New Year, it's Rosh Hashanah coming up on Monday night, and Rosh Hashanah is the commemorates the creation of the universe, the beginning of when God created the world, the moment of the Big Bang. The creative energy that exists there is the same that exists now, and we just keep going around, just like a tree keeps creating new rings. We're at that same point of creation. We're at that same point of being able to delve in and pray and ask for new, that the creation is at its highest, according to Jewish mystics. And so if you're ready to shift your relationship with money, you're ready to start growing in a garden that's full and rich and abundant. Now's the time to pray for it and to ask for it and to reach out for it. Sending everybody just all my love, and I'll see you next week. Thank you. God bless.